Welcome, studs and scrubs, to the first ever episode of the Studs and Scrubs Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Scrubs. That's us. I am your co-host, Stu Guffy. You can find me online at Stucoffee, and with me is a co-host, Nick, or Nickstrum, Cordell.
What up?
Nick, how's it going? How you doing today?
It's going good. Good.
Good
Can't
to hear.
complain.
Good to hear. Quick, before we go too far, this is our inaugural episode of a new podcast. We have one more co-host who cannot join us on the opening episode. It's a bit of a bummer. My brother Miles is on LTIR right now. He's got some health things going on, but hopefully he'll join us soon. And basically, we are just some scrubs that love hockey. As you can see from Nickstrom's hat.
All things hockey, all things Red Wings.
We got all things hockey, all things Red Wings. All three of your co-hosts are Red Wings fans. We will unashamedly be biased for the Red Wings, but love everything hockey, mostly NHL and mostly fantasy. We're just none of us played at a high level. None of us were pros. We're a bunch of Monday morning quarterbacks.
That's right.
That just
fantasize about playing hockey. Just fantasize
Right,
about being at that pro level, you know?
In fact, not to go too far off topic immediately in our podcast,
We have no topic. There's no going off topic.
There's no going off topic. There's no planning. We're not insiders.
Yeah.
It's not like Iserman called me today and let me know what I got to cover. The NHL's Instagram, or one of their NHL Europe Instagram, one of the official NHL ones, did one of those like they don't have anything to post because the season hasn't started, and it was like, oh, your birthday, your date, and your month. And for me, for my birthday, it was you're a goalie for the Detroit Red Wings.
What?
It was like the number, right? Because we got 32, so your number was your team. And then your month that you were born was like what position you'll play. Okay. And I was just laughing so hard because it was like literally to this day, I'm over 30 now. People are like, oh, what's the dream job you want to do? I'm like, the only dream job I've ever had was if you could play in the NHL.
Right.
Be a goalie for the Red Wings. That's it. That's
perfect.
It happened like an hour before this call.
I like it. Well, if Stevie Y calls you up during this call, asking for your, assistance in net, by all means, answer.
Well, I figured the Red Wings only have 6 goalies this year, so they could probably use another.
One more.
And he did call me earlier this week, actually. He said, look, I'm trying to get Ray and Mo signed. What do you think I should do here? And I said, just put some ink to paper here. We got to go. The season started. So that was good.
Nice.
Anyways, now that I've derailed us right away, very briefly, if, all of our millions of followers out there, when you follow along, we're going to try to focus on just news with the Red Wings, news with the NHL, and really just fantasy because, we're not journalists or insiders, or we're not going to break any news more than the, news channels the real famous people are going to do. We just love hockey, and we have a platform to talk now where we're not driving our wives insane. So our fantasy league, we started 10, 12 years ago, right?
This will be our 12th year, going into our 12th
year. So we've tweaked it over the years. We just do the Yahoo Fantasy, but we didn't like their default settings. Their default settings categories we didn't like, and some of their scoring systems we didn't like. So over the years, Nickstrom's our commissioner. So really, he should probably take the floor, but we'll do a thing. We'll either do an episode or we'll put a link of like just how we do our point system because we think it's more fun. And it's just how we're going to talk. So when we're like, oh, this is a great dude, go pick up this guy over here, it's going to be kind of based on the way we play. So if you're out there listening and you do categories, you might say like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I pick him up? So just for a grain of salt out there.
100%. There is a big difference between doing points and doing a categories league. I think we did categories maybe the first 2 or 3 years, and then we switched over to points and head-to-head and just, we tweak stuff every year, it seems like. I think we got it pretty well reined in. Maybe a few minor things. I know some people expressed interest in players getting points for hits. This year, I don't know. I was meaning to kind of throw that out there and just kind of get some feelers on that and see what people think about that. Just because you get some defensemen that aren't real offensive defensemen, so then how do the defensive defensemen get any points? So a couple years ago, I think we added block shots, to the league for scoring, and so like I said, we've kind of tweaked it every year a little bit. Goalies, we've had to. I feel like that's kind of what we're tweaking the most at times. And then, okay, should guys get more a bonus point for scoring on the power play? You're on the power play, you're supposed to score. So just minor things here and there. It's not perfect by any means, but we're trying to get it to where it's at least pretty well balanced between all the players and the scoring and different things. So, but
Definitely.
yeah, going into the twelfth year, we got 12 teams. Got a couple new guys. Most of the players have been players for a while. Couple new guys this year, just because you always have a couple guys that kind of fizzle out, start off strong, and then just don't pay attention, and then guys are getting bye weeks halfway through the season and stuff because you're playing a team
Yeah.
that is full of injured players or something. But um, we don't play for money, play for pride, and this
Right.
sweet trophy back here. Uh, so
And
uh,
the trophy there, if you can see, it's hard to tell with the scale.
it is a
Maybe I
little
mean
hard
people can't
to,
see,
yeah.
but the thing's huge. Nick actually built that,
All
and
of these are pucks,
pucks
10
stacked
pucks a
up.
column.
10 pucks a column. You got, yeah.
Yep, yep.
So that's,
So
well, I don't know off the top of my head 100%, but just back when I used to play for fun, right? We none of us were like good. We just played youth hockey and stuff.
right,
But I think a puck is an inch high, tall.
looks about
Could be
right.
3 quarter.
So
I know it's 3 inches. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to remember.
oh,
I think it
probably
weighs it
three
counts as
inches,
3 inches
3 inches
width,
wide. Yeah,
which is when you're a goalie, that's what you care about, right? Because it's got to
right,
cross the goal line. So you know that. I don't care how tall
right.
the
Yeah,
thing is,
yeah.
but
So,
probably
but
why I
yeah.
could have passed. No, but
So that's what
our
we're
fantasy.
playing for.
Right, exactly. Our fantasy's gotten so fun. Right away, it was fun, but tweaking it over the years, and like you said, we don't play for money, so sometimes that the disadvantage of that is like halfway through the year, people maybe,
Right.
well, fantasy
Lose
football, right, is
interest and
bigger
don't
in
really
general.
play.
So
Yeah,
if people are on the app, they're checking football, they're checking hockey, and they're kind of that is part of the
yeah. Well, and
burden
there's games
sometimes.
every day in hockey. Football, they got them once a week. Hockey, it is
Once a
much
week.
more. Uh, Recently, in the last couple of years, Yahoo's added that start active button. So you can just
Yeah,
hit that and it sets your lineup. Now, it might not be the players that you want in your lineup, but at least it fields a full roster of players that have games. I
yeah.
have not been able to figure out the rhyme or reason as to how they put what players in there. Don't know if it's alphabetical, if it's by rank.
Right.
None of those seem to make sense when I try to figure it out and decipher whatever code they've come up with.
Right, because it changes.
Draft position, it's just weird. So it's like, no, I think I want to play Crosby over Ryan O'Reilly in the center position. Why would you put?
Why would you? Right, exactly.
Come on.
I'm
Uh,
with you on that because I can't figure it out either, and there probably is an answer out there somewhere, but I think that they're most likely it's a little too complicated. I bet you there's some sort of
oh, right. That
algorithm
it's
they
too
got.
complex. It's probably a pretty complex
It's a strength
algorithm or
of schedule. It's
some
trying to figure
formula.
out
Yeah.
like, no, it's a noon game, and you're having this guy play. Trust us, you're going to want. And it might be an okay player, like you said. Ryan O'Reilly's a fantastic hockey player, but in fantasy, it's like, okay,
Right.
well, you benched Matthews.
Yeah.
Like,
Why would
what are
you?
we doing here? He
Yeah.
scored 70 goals. Like, I need this guy to play. And, that's on the user a little bit. But like you said, I wish that the start active button, which is the best feature Yahoo has,
Yeah.
I wish that it just did their rankings,
Yeah.
even if you
That would make
disagree.
sense.
It was
That
just,
would make
here's
sense.
Yahoo's rankings, and when you hit start active, man, that's what goes in.
Right. The other
Then to
thing that
me, it'd be
I
like,
wish Yahoo would change, and this is across all the fantasy sports, is that if you drop a player for whatever reason, it then throws off your whole
oh, yeah,
lineup for the week. And if you add a player, and instead of I drop whoever. um, you drop someone to pick up someone else, someone gets hurt, and you're just replacing that player's position. You would think that they would just put him in that position, and for the rest of the week, it would just be that player
Right.
in the new position. We're not messing with other lineups. We're not messing with anything else. But for whatever reason, it's like Yahoo just goes into this hard reset where, oh, you added a player, just reset them all, and it's
Resets
really
everything.
annoying. It's really ridiculous. So
And that it is annoying because you can lose a whole week very
yeah, if
easily
you're not paying
over that.
attention to it, if you're not even thinking that that's happening, then you got to go. But you might leave it, and now it's got players that aren't playing games, or oh, let me hit the start active button again. Well, then you got to go back and you have to re
Like,
put
make
in the
sure it
players that
works.
you want to put in there,
Take out
like you were
their
just talking about.
stupid
So yeah,
suggestion that doesn't make sense. Right.
I don't get it. Yahoo, if you want to pay us to figure out to take care of that for
Yeah,
you,
we'll get
I'd be
on
more
board.
than happy to.
We got
Yeah,
Eiserman call waiting, and we got
yeah,
Yahoo Fantasy giving us job offers. We're pretty good
right.
start.
Yeah.
No,
So
but I'm with you on that because not only does it like not reset right and cuts it out, but there's no way to kind of maybe if you had a setting where you could choose, like in the
right.
event of a conflict,
Yeah.
play this person,
Right.
and something like that. Whatever. I don't know. They would benefit from fixing that. I think it'd be a huge help because
Yeah.
the other
Agreed.
reason to not play for money, though, is like everyone knows fantasy is kind of a game of chance to some degree, where you got to pay attention, you got to use skill, and you do your homework, you're probably going to do better than the other guy. But
Right.
there's so much that, like in hockey, they play so many games. If you miss the one game where a third liner didn't get started because you added a guy, it's not maybe that big of a deal. But of course, it's going to be like the one time all year that the guy gets a hat trick,
Right.
and you're sitting there. Somebody just had one in preseason. I mean, he's a really good player, but he kind of fell off a bit. Paul Jarvie, right? Is that how you say his name?
Oh, okay.
I'm drawing a blank. Sorry on pronunciation, but he just had a hat trick this week, and it's
Okay.
like, right, that's not going to happen too often.
Right.
Very talented person, but he's probably a 20 goal scorer nowadays, and it's like that's the one time that you're going to get
Yeah.
screwed.
Oh,
But
for sure. For sure.
anyway,
Yeah.
and then if you got, I've heard a lot of these leagues, especially football, it's pretty common. Buying's not $10. It's $100 a guy, and the
Right.
winners take home $1,000, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. I can't
I'm,
believe
I'm,
that.
I'm mad when it's for pride. We had the money on
Oh
the line
yeah.
here. I might
Oh yeah.
which also, not to overshare too much, but Nick's our commissioner, and Nickstrum. We got the Nickstrum nickname for the Red Wings fans. We got
Yeah.
Lindstrom, Holmstrom,
Holmstrom.
Nickstrum. We got all of our strums. And so that was way back. I don't know even when we
Oh
first
gosh.
met, but we definitely were watching the '08 Cup
That
together
was
and the '09
probably, yeah, pushing
tragedy
15
together.
years ago. Pushing 15 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so but Nickstrom, it's a little bit more awkward for you, I'd say. Fantasy controversy sometimes as the commissioner. It's friends and
It
family,
can
right? So
be.
Nick
It
has
can be. Yeah.
family members, friends, work friends,
Co-workers and my
church
boss.
friends, like all in the same group who don't know each other,
Yeah.
right? Like you're the all of us know like 3, 4 people in the league, except you
Yeah.
know everyone, and have to see them all at
Which,
work,
you
at
know
family
what though,
functions.
a lot of people though, I'm sure you're getting this way. My boss, he doesn't know you personally, but he knows that Leah's team had his team's number last year. He knows what team you are, and I mean, he knows about you guys. I'm like, oh yeah, my buddy Stu and Leah, down in Tampa. He's like, oh yeah, and
Yeah,
Miles is Stu's brother, and I mean, so they like they've never met you, but they know all
no,
about you. I feel like, they know who you are and that kind of
right,
stuff. And I mean, Jace has been in the league for a while now. I don't know that you've
Jay.
ever met him, but
And I always know Jace for not only is he very good at fantasy, but like when we changed some of our goalie stuff, and which kind of came, I feel like, on the heels of me because I love goalies and used to play goalie. I like flipped out a little bit one year because the way we did goalie stats, I was like, "That's crap, that's garbage," And I'll stand by that. I still think that the way we do it now is better because we essentially changed our points. That your saves ended up being the most important thing as a goalie.
Yeah.
So in translation, your save percentage, because I'm big on, even in the real stats books, is like, I just saw a thing today. Gorgiev. Gorgiev is projected to get the most wins in the NHL, and he might. He did last year.
Mm,
I doubt very many people would say Gorgiev is the best goalie in the NHL,
right.
or top five, or maybe top 10. And
Yeah.
so for me, it was like, that's fine. Back in the day when we were playing categories, and this was 12 years ago, you're looking at Corey Crawford going, oh, what a great goalie to have. And then I'm like, dude, it's just saves. It's just stopping the puck. They need to stop the puck. And what happened is Jace was smart, where it was like, because there's so many hockey games versus football, they play once a week, you just have one stud goalie that you keep all season. But if you don't have that stud goalie, man, you just dropping that goalie, dropping that goalie, dropping that goalie. And chances are they're going to get you a few fantasy points because they're going to stop the puck enough to get you a few points. And it
Right.
was like, oh crap, we might have a little hole in our system here because Jace has figured out this loophole to, like, it's Sunday night and I'm down by 10 points. I better grab a goalie.
Yeah.
And he goes out there and he doesn't even have to play super well. He makes 30 saves and, whatever, the team won 4-2. You probably won fantasy. And it's like, okay, maybe we need to address that. So it's fun to tweak and change the rules because, like you say before, we have unintended consequences sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you make changes and you don't know how that, I mean, you can kind of try to project and figure what you think it's going to do, but until you play a full season of it and see the effects of what those point scoring changes are, you really don't know. Even just like I mentioned earlier about making hits, worth a half a point or something like that, and we haven't finalized any of that for this year, but you think you're doing it for defensemen. Okay, well
Right.
now if you do that, Ovechkin's a little older now, but hey, in his prime, if you were to throw hits in there, okay, Ovi's going to get you goals and some shots and hits. Crosby's going to get you, your some goals, more assists, power play points and stuff, but he's not going to get as many hits, So how does that affect the other players, the forwards? You're putting it in there to address defensemen, but it also is going to affect all the other players in the league as well. So what's that going to look like?
Right, exactly. And I actually kind of love that because sometimes not only are you not prepared for it, but somebody figures it out, and even if they exploit it a little bit, it's like good for them. That's why
Yeah,
we change it. That's why we have fun with it, and we love fantasy. And then you're a little invested in your teams you not normally are, like you said with
yeah,
hit. I think Racco Gudis is probably a good example. New
sure,
captain of Anaheim, where it's like, okay, he's a good player, but in fantasy, that's kind of a bottom of the barrel. He's not going to get you very many
right,
points. But if you got block shots and you got hits and you got some of these other stats, maybe plus minus depending, it's like,
hmm,
okay, then that you're targeting those type of players. Then there's an unexpected consequence, maybe, or an unintended consequence of some of these forwards that are going to do the same things, whether they're penalty killers or they're big hitters.
right,
Somebody like gets lots of points but plays a penalty kill a lot might be. Uh, I just drew a blank. Plays for Toronto. His father played for Toronto too. Um, was a fighter. His dad was a fighter. What is his name?
oh, Domi, Max Domi,
Yeah, Domi, thank
Ty
you. Just
Domi,
totally blanked on it.
yeah,
Max Domi, he plays penalty kill pretty much all the time, right? Someone like Larkin, who's they're both they're power play guy and penalty kill guy, and you
yeah,
can get these unintended consequences with it. But just for an example, I pulled up our fantasy league, how it ended last year, and when you sort by the blocked shots, you see some of these people that you normally wouldn't probably have on your fantasy, like a Nick Sealer. Okay,
mm,
I couldn't really place Nick Sealer, to be honest, when I read the name. Plays for Philly. He's a defenseman. He only had 1 goal and 12 assists, but he's fourth in blocks last year.
dang,
So you
yeah,
get the block shots, and maybe he's not. going to pick him up in fantasy. But it's just like you look at that now; it's another layer where the top shot blockers were Pareko and Sider. Now you're
Yeah.
going, okay, well, hold on. Instead of running out and grabbing, if you don't have McCarr and you don't have Quinn Hughes and you don't have Fox or whoever you'll
Right.
see, then like I've got another layer. And so you add hits and it's the same type of thing, most likely. I'm guessing, but I've got Chris Tanev right here is number 3, tied for 3rd in block shots. Okay, well, he probably had more hits than, well, probably not McCarr. McCarr has a lot of hits, but Tanev probably had more hits than Fox, I'm guessing.
Sure.
So, it's just fun to see that and to kind of strategize like, okay, here we go. Mario Ferrero for San Jose, he had an okay year for block shots, but he was negative 40 because San Jose sucks. So it's like,
Terrible. Right. It
anyways.
just adds a little layer to it because, I mean, you figure if you're down and you need a defenseman, you're just trying to add another game to your schedule for the week or something.
Exactly.
Most defensemen are going to be gone already
Right.
on a team that play the power play. Those are going to be the ones that get ate up first. Okay, well, what? So I'm just supposed to get lucky and maybe pick up a Nick Leddy who scores 1 goal every other year and hope that he
Right.
scores that goal? Or am I going to look for a defenseman that can get me points in another way, block shots, hits, things like that? So, I mean,
Exactly.
it is helpful for the defenseman, but you're right, there are unintended consequences for the other guys because you can't just make it defensemen get points for this. It's all the forwards and the defensemen, will get points for the same thing. So,
And I think your default setting on Yahoo in categories is that penalty minutes is a category you can
is a
win.
category, yeah.
And we have it where a penalty minute actually is a negative, right?
Yeah.
Like 2
So
minutes is minus.
a 2 minute minor is minus half a point. So
Right.
it's not much, but it is something that
Right.
will hurt your team, like it does in a real game. You
In
take
real
a
game.
penalty,
And
you're hurting
agree.
your team.
We made that adjustment for that, right? And there's no way to distinguish on Yahoo or as far as I know on any fantasy that
Right.
you can say, okay, well, hold on. I want a 5-minute major for fighting specifically to be a boost because it can change morale or it can
Right.
help your team. Where then I want any penalty that's like a misconduct for something dirty, an illegal hit or spearing, or I want that to be a bigger minus. It's just penalty minutes.
Right.
And
Yeah.
when we change that, here's an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
You got someone,
When Yahoo hires us and we change
when
that,
they hire us, we can figure this out and get it all squared away. I just sorted by penalty minutes for a fun example. Liam O'Brien is number 1 in penalty minutes our last season, at least according to this Yahoo thing I got pulled up right here.
Right.
So he's playing for Utah Hockey Club this year, and he's a tough guy, and he gets a lot of penalty minutes for fighting. Well, he's only 1% rostered across all of Yahoo. Most people do not pick this guy up for fantasy, but
It's
right
probably his
below
own
him,
league.
99% rostered, the second most penalty minutes in the league, is a superstar who almost every single fantasy league would I think every single fantasy league would have, 99% according to Yahoo, is Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah.
So here's a guy who gets 37 goals, 37 assists, and the Senators underperformed last year. So you're looking at a 40-40 player.
Right.
That the unintended consequences is, oh, wait, hold on. Now Brady Tkachuk in our system is lower. Yeah. Where if you're playing categories with penalty minutes, he's like top 5 in the league.
Right. How many hits did he have? Where's he at in the hit list?
It's not showing me hits, is maybe because we didn't have them do points for us.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true. But I would venture to guess that if we did, points for hits, how much does that even out the penalty minutes?
Right, which, you know what, is probably a really good, we're talking ourselves into it right now, I think, because somebody who plays aggressive and hits a lot is often a power forward or a defensive defenseman. And it's not necessarily a translation to penalty minutes, but you do have players, both the Tkachuk brothers, Evander Kane had just announced is out for months and months and months. But, for a long time, he was that type of player. Maybe Kadri was that type of player, right? where Marchand, they kind of are on the edge. They're
Yeah.
taking penalties they shouldn't. Some of them are dumb, some of them are cheap shots, but like they are producing offense and they just play that bull in the china shop. McKinnon kind of just runs around, just going crazy all the time, offense or defense.
Right.
And so it's like you get that little bump in those type of players. Even if the reason you added hits was so your defensive defenseman had some way to gain points,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, hold on. Balancing the penalty minutes, now all of a sudden the Brady Kachucks of the world are, and actually Racco Gudis is right on here. Only 6 goals, but he's fifth in penalty minutes. So now he's like a double negative in our league. Doesn't score
Yeah.
goals and gets penalty minutes.
And gets penalties. Right.
Well, he probably was in the top 10 for hits.
I would venture to guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
He's probably up there.
we've gone down some rabbit holes talking our fantasy, which is the intention of the pod. We will do a lot of fantasy talking, but since the season starts next week, we wanted to kind of just give our run in, mostly just the two of us chit chat and talking hockey, of who do we think's in, maybe simple predictions.
Who's in,
based
who's
on
out.
who we think's in,
Yep.
in and out playoffs. Now for East Coast, did we want to just do one division today? I forget. We said it right before the call, but I'm drawing a blank. Just go ahead and do the whole East.
I think we do all the East because I had to do Metro. I was going through the Atlantic, but I had to do the Metro then as well to narrow down who I had in the playoffs.
Okay. Yep. So I'm the same.
I think
So
we just
we
do
might as well
all,
just
the
start
whole
with the
East.
division.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it because of the structure that I don't like, and I think most people don't love, where you get the 3 from each division, right? You kind of
Right.
like have to.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. I think this team's in. I think this team's in. There's only 2 wild cards. I can now hold on. I got to figure out the Metro. So we started with the Atlantic in our heads and in our notes to ourselves, just because the Red Wings are in the Atlantic. So we said might as well start with the top. So just so we don't miss a team, I was gonna just kind of plug through the Atlantic and go bottom up, but I don't think we really necessarily have to do that. We're not going to bring anything to the table deeper than an insider or an expert of the league. So I don't know if you want to do who you got in and out, your playoff teams. I do mine. How do you want to
Yeah, so I can start. I'll do the Atlantic. I'll go bottom to top. And I mean, I can tell you what teams out of those I think are going to make the playoffs, and then let you do your Atlantic, and then jump over to the Metro and stuff. So
perfect.
so some of these I just kind of was looking at some rosters, maybe some moves, off-season moves, what they got going on right now, and just maybe what I think is going to happen. I feel like I'm a hard guy I'm very conservative in some of these sometimes, and I just think, oh, well, that's what happened last year. That's probably what's going to happen again. Why wouldn't it? And so it's a little bit tricky sometimes because you don't want to be wrong. You don't want to look like an idiot. But anyway, I got Canadians at the bottom.
Yep.
Atlantic's just so tough. I just don't think the Canadians, maybe in a few years, might be on the right track, but right now they're just going to get clobbered by everybody else in the division. Same with the Sabres. Got some good young talent, some good young D, Darlene, Owen Power, Tage Thompson, is a great player. But again, the Atlantic's going to be super tough. Senators, I got finishing then just above them a little bit. Again, Stutzel, Kachuk, Giroux's on the top line there. Allmark, they got him. So, they're not a bad team. I feel like maybe sometimes I think just because I put them towards the bottom that they're a bad team, but that's not always the case. It's just that there's other teams that are ahead of them, I feel like. So I still have them on the outside looking in. Now this next one might surprise some people. Maybe it's just because I want it. This is what I want to happen. I got the Bruins. I think Jeremy Swayman, as of now, is still not signed, and I think he'll be okay. But does this lead to how long's he gonna sit? Is he gonna start at the beginning of the season? Big thing is, I don't think he's got Allmark to kind of fall back on, and so I think they got Corpus Salo there now.
Yeah,
Who's a serviceable goalie. But I just, I'm not sure workload wise because I do think he's gonna, push that 50, 60 game mark maybe. If he gets signed, they're gonna rely on him. Guys up front are getting a little older. Pasta's still great as always, but I got them falling off a little bit from last year. All right, so that leaves the other four teams above the Bruins. I got the Red Wings. I would have loved to have put them higher. But man, I think they're gonna be a little bit of a bubble team. But that last little stretch last year was basically the playoffs for them. And I mean, I just think if they can stay healthy, they are good. You got Raymond locked up now. You got Sider locked up now. I do think at some point Eiserman's gonna have to make some deadline moves to help the team now. We've been in this phase of, just kind of rebuilding and building for the future and stuff. So, but I think the Wings take another step forward. Above them, I got Tampa Bay. I almost had Tampa Bay and the Wings flip flop last year. Tampa Bay was without Vasilevsky for the first month and a half, and he still didn't quite seem like himself all season. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, they lost Stamkos, but I think they've played a lot of hockey over the last 3, 4, 5 years, going to the finals so much, and I mean they're still a good team, and I don't want to count them out. I might actually, man, I would love to be able to flip those, but then to say the Wings are the third team in the Atlantic seems kind of crazy, but. So I'll kind of leave them where they're at. Um, and then top. So I got two teams left: Panthers and Leafs. I'm putting the Leafs at number two. I got the Panthers winning it just because I like their depth a little more. The Leafs are obviously going to score goals, but I'm not sold on their goaltending. I know they got Wall, and he did, you know, good last year in the playoffs and stuff for him. But you get these guys that come in. Playoffs is one thing. Obviously, you're playing playoff competition, but you get a whole workload in there. I mean, it can just be brutal. I do think these teams are going to beat up on each other a lot, and I have five teams from the Atlantic making the playoffs. I don't think that's a stretch. Those Panthers, Leafs, Lightning, Wings, and Bruins. I mean, I could probably make an argument for three of those five winning the division. You can say Panthers all they just won the cup, short off season, that kind of thing. You could say the Leafs could win it, take a step forward. Bruins could surprise some people. I think the one year they were expected to be a little bit of nothing, and then they just went on that tear and were like breaking records for wins and points in a season, out of nowhere. And so that's what I got for the Atlantic. Um, but we'll see what happens.
No, I like the breakdown. I've got a really similar structure. Um, I didn't see. I'll go through my list. I didn't see
Okay.
the where you put Boston. I was surprised where you put
Yeah.
Boston, but I like that.
I had to
Um,
have something. I couldn't just go with the conventional answers here. I had to
right, you can't have
mix
it
it
just
up.
exactly the same
Yeah.
as it is every year. However, I sort of do because the Atlantic I think is so tough. So I'll start from the bottom up. I also have Montreal at 8, but I think they're going to be better than. Well, I mean, they're getting a lot of hype because they're just Lane went there, right? And so there's
Right.
some attention on them. Caulfield changes his number out of respect and admiration
Yeah.
for Johnny Gaudreau, and there's a lot of hype there just because it's Montreal and they're going to get a lot of media coverage. I think they are going to be just tune in to watch every single night, fun.
Yeah.
But the Atlantic is so stacked that I'm with you. I see that they're a little light on defense, they're a little light in goaltending, and that young offensive core and their speed is going to be awesome. I hope that Wi-Fi Arbor Jackeye is just hammering people. Also, kind of an underrated player too. I think he'll get some decent points too. I think Montreal is going to be really fun, but just not yet. Just they're not quite there right
Yeah.
now. give them 4 or 5 years, they might be the team to watch. I hope in 4 or 5 years we got Red Wings and Montreal going as the top teams in division. I would love it. Number 7, I've got Buffalo. A lot of people seem high on Buffalo this year, and I can see it. They're just potential. Montreal, Buffalo, Senators, Wings, they're just potential. All 4 of those teams are just sky's the limit. And so I can see Buffalo. I wouldn't be that surprised if they had a great year. They took a step back last year, and a lot of people are saying that's a fluke. They had injuries. They're back. Is Devin Levi the guy, or Devon, however you say, Devin Levi is the guy. He's a stud, and they're going to carry him. I don't know. I don't quite see it. I think that Tage Thompson had 50 goals the one year. I don't know if he's a 50 goal scorer every year.
Right.
I'm not, Alex Tuck is a very solid power forward, but is he your number one winger, in the league? And you got Cousins, you got some solid people, but I just don't see it. I've got them as 7. Senators, I think, take the step forward. Last year, I think they finished a little lower than their team really, the talent that they have. I was just looking at it today to double check. At the end of the season, I want to say, Wings kind of was in playoff mode. All these teams were fighting for the playoffs down the stretch, like a long stretch, right? 10 to 20 games. It was basically must-win hockey because Wings, unfortunately, went on the huge losing streak when Larkin was hurt. But it was like that I saw the Senators dropped in the standings more than I thought. There was a pretty big point gap. I guess I've got pulled up. Not that we, need it, but they finished with 78. Red Wings were 91. We all know Red Wings and Capitals tied, and Capitals getting on some stupid rule. Even though Red Wings win the most games, we're not sore about it. But that was a pretty big drop off from the Senators by the time the season ended. However, there's a lot of close games. They had a lot of close games. They had a lot of overtime losses. I want to say they had the most maybe overtime loss. No, they didn't. Canadians had the most overtime losses.
Okay.
Sorry. But, they had some close games where I'm thinking Ullmark's the difference maker to push them above Buffalo, but I still have them as number 6. Number 5, I've got our Red Wings. So for me, the Red Wings are going to take a step forward this year. They're going to be a little bit better than last year. If they stay healthy, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I just think the Atlantic is so stacked. I don't know if they can leapfrog. To me, team number 4 is the Lightning. I could see the Lightning dropping off a bit. Some people have really kind of written them off a little bit, that they're starting to crack, they're starting to go down. I do agree with that overall. But, man, that line 1 is just out of control. I mean, I know you get rid of Stamkos, and to me, as a Red Wings guy from the 90s and the Yzerman and all this, I'm like, dude, that's your captain. How could you ever disrespect your captain? You got to sign your captain forever. It's the Ovechkins and the Crosbys. Stamkos is, like, in the tier of Ovechkin.
Oh, yeah.
The guy is an absolute legend, and I don't really care about money if I'm a fan. I mean, I want my team to be good and win, but you don't trade your captain. I think that's weird, personally. I guess we're just old. I think it's weird when these teams sorry, you're old now, and their captain, they kicked to the curb, or he's got a PTO in some other team, and stuff like that. Max Pacioretty used to be the captain of the Canadiens. He's played on 3, 4, 5 teams now, and is like getting a tryout with the Leafs. I have heard or read that it's not really a tryout. He's on the team, but it's, a formality. I just don't get that. So that aside, Gensel, Point, and Kucherov, I can't see it. I can't see the Wings skipping them yet this year. I also think with the Vasilevsky thing that I read that like last year he was hurt, right? And Johansson, right, is his name, the backup?
Yes.
Yeah. I think he proved that he's kind of a stud. He can kind of carry the weight a little bit more than people maybe thought. It was like, okay, Vasilevsky's out. Tampa Bay's the worst team in the league. Okay, well, when he came back, he wasn't really that amazing. I've heard people say, it's a long process. He's getting a little bit older. He's a goalie. He's flexible. He's a huge person. You don't just come back from that injury with hip, right? Or I don't remember. I think it's hips.
Lower body, something, yeah.
So it's like he wasn't really 100%. Like you said, they've had long playoff runs, going to the finals over and over and over again. coming into this year, I think he's going to be stronger than he was, and they're going to be a
Yeah.
solid team again. I think losing Sergachev is a huge blow, and they
Mm-hmm.
will be a little bit worse than we've seen them over the past years. But I think the line one's going to carry them. They're going to get wins. There's going to be 10 games or 15 games where that line and that power play win it, and that'll be
Yeah.
enough. I've talked about them too long. I live down here now. It's hard to get away from them. Number 3, I've got the Bruins. I think the Bruins have just that structure type of game where they just kind of play a team game and they're very kind of like next man up. And as good as Marchand is,
Mm.
they don't have somebody. Kucherov got 100 assists, right? They don't have that. They don't have a McKinnon. They don't have a McDavid. They don't. They're a very good balanced team, and I think the Swayman thing could be a bigger problem. If he doesn't sign, how long does this go? Like you said, he's a total stud, but he's only played like 80 games in the league or 100 or whatever it is. So last year in the playoffs, I think he showed he is one of the best goalies in the whole world. But can he do it for 60 starts? I don't know. Okay, can he do it for 40? Is Corpusalo good enough where they can go 40-40? And I think that's part of the problem with the contract. I think that the Bruins management is saying, look, our team defense is so good, we don't really need you. We just traded away the Vezina Trophy winner.
Right.
We could put any person in the net, they're going to get the stops. Just my opinion that I think that they'll still be good enough to carry through playoffs. I don't know. We'll see how bad it hurts them. My X factor on that team right now is Zadorov. I think he's an underrated, very, very good defenseman. I think he did awesome with Vancouver, and that coming into Boston, he's going to pick up a lot of the slack that they need people to log minutes. They need big bodies to wear down the faster teams. Even Montreal, that I don't think is going to do super well in the standings, they're in your division. You got to play them like 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want those guys just running and gunning on you over and over and over and over and over. So I got Bruins as 3. For me, I'm the same as you. I got Leafs as number 2. I think Leafs will do what they always do. They're going to be awesome. They're going to light it up, and they're going to have a great regular season. Matthews is captain. Marner's playing for the contract, and there's all that noise around him. I wouldn't be that surprised if Nylander takes a step back, to be perfectly honest. He was playing for the big contract. He got the big contract. He deserved the big contract, and he was a total stud. Best guy on the team for a large majority of the season. Okay, let's see how they do. Let's see how Wool does. They got a little bit of grit. Okay. I think that they'll just be like they always are. They'll just be awesome in the regular season, and we'll just see what happens in April. Number 1, still Panthers for me. Their depth didn't change very much. They lost some people. They added some people. They're just totally stacked. I think that they're going to pull out the top of the division there. So I rambled a little longer than I meant to on Atlantic.
No, that's good. Should we?
For me,
Do you think we should do the Metro or save it? We're at good spot here. I feel like if you got a few other things to talk about, I'd be
yeah,
good
we got
with
a few things to talk about. I feel
just
like
doing Atlantic this for
maybe the
now.
Atlantic is good, and then I'll
What
just do
teams out of
my
the Atlantic do you have for the playoffs?
playoffs. I'm with you. I think they're the same ones. I got 5
Same
in the
ones,
Atlantic.
different order. Yeah.
Different order. Panthers in, winning the division.
Yep.
Leafs, Bruins,
Second.
Lightning wild card 1, Wings wild card 2.
Gotcha. Yeah.
No offense, I just think the Metro's garbage. Quite frankly, it's a top heavy division, and we'll talk about it next time. But I just don't see it.
100%. Yeah.
And to be
Yeah.
honest, as much as I love my Wings, if it was Senators and Buffalo and the Wings were out, or it was Buffalo made it in and Capitals or Islanders made it in, I wouldn't be that surprised. The Metro just is not as strong as the Atlantic. There's just no way.
Yeah.
So
I agree. All right,
moving
we'll
from
hit
the
that next
Atlantic,
time.
we're going to skip Metro, do that next time. Did you want to go into your talks that you were discussing with award things, or did you want to do like studs and scrubs fantasy stuff?
Ooh. Well, I can hit my
Award.
trophy here.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of studs and scrubs if you want. So I like to call this segment NHL, Nick's history lesson. So I think in this kind of started with the unfortunate passing of Johnny and Matthew Goudreau, and just that whole tragedy. Yeah, still so heartbreaking.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there was a lot going around at the time about, and still kind of is, renaming the Lady Byng Trophy in honor of Johnny Gaudreau and just how that embodies him
Yes.
as a hockey player and doing that. So it got us kind of thinking, these trophies, these awards in the NHL, they do have a lot of history to them, but how much do fans really know about
Yeah.
those trophies and the history behind them? And, you know, I, I don't know what the number is, but I'd venture to guess that 80, 90% of them are named after people or
Right.
player, and so who were those people? Who were those players? What did they do? What did they contribute? Why are they important? And so I kind of wanted to hit some of that. Um, and
Yeah,
so
I love
I'm
it. I love it
going,
because some of them are obvious, right? You got the Rocket Trophy.
Rocket
Okay, well,
Richard. Yeah,
everyone knows who Maurice Richard is, but I don't know who Lady Being is. So they're saying rename it for Johnny Gaudreau. I'm kind of like, yes, we should honor Johnny Gaudreau, but also I'm like, wait, what?
yeah,
Who's Lady?
yeah,
Who's Lady Being? And so I
yeah,
love this segment that you've set up to kind of go through some of those awards and trophies and explain who they were, how it started, blah blah, whatever.
yeah.
Love it.
So I probably should have started with the Lady Bing, but I'm going a different route. We're going with the William M. Jennings Award.
Okay.
Stu, do you know who that is awarded to?
I think I know who wins it. I
Okay.
think the William Jennings is awarded to the player slash team or players of the goalies that got the most wins in a year. Is that the Jennings?
So the William M. Jennings is awarded to the goalie that played a minimum of 25 games and had the fewest goals against.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking of a different trophy. See? See?
Yeah. So I believe this award can be split as far as if your goalies, if it's a tandem, they both play over 25 games, and then that team has the fewest goals against.
Yeah,
They kind of split the award.
they split the, or maybe even if there was two teams exact, the goalies had exactly.
Yeah, the goalies wouldn't have necessarily had to be on the same team,
Yeah, if it,
um,
yeah.
because I'm trying to. I do think there was an instance where that happened. Um, so that's who it's awarded to. It's named in honor of longtime governor and president of New York Rangers. Now, I don't know what a governor of the New York Rangers would have done, but I'm assuming kind of the same thing as a president, just kind of ran things, governed things.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't do too much digging into what that was, but so William Jennings, that's who he was. Now, this little tidbit right here reminded me of you and our fantasy uh, discrepancy of goalie points, if you will. So this is a fairly recent trophy. From
Okay.
1946 to 1981, so 46 to 81, the Vesna was awarded to this goalie.
Oh,
Um, so they still had this stat, um, or this category, goalie that played at least 25 games that allowed the fewest goals, but they were winning the Vesna from 46 to 81. Then they realized that it went to the goalie uh, on a better team, not necessarily the best
okay.
goalie.
Okay.
So then they came up with they kind of switched. That's when they came up with this trophy in the early '80s to give to the goalie minimum 25 games, fewest goals against, and then the Vesna started going to who was voted as the best goalie.
Okay. I love that. I did not realize that that's how the Vesna used to be, and so they swapped it up.
I didn't
I
either
love
until I
that
started looking into this. Yeah,
because maybe I should save it for when you do the history of a different one. But a lot of people talk about how the Norris almost always goes to the D with the most points. And it's like,
right.
okay, well, sometimes they're the best D, but sometimes they're not.
Right.
And there should almost be two separate trophies. And so it shows precedence that the NHL has actually done that already with
That
this
is
Jennings
true.
trophy.
Yes.
And so that's really actually pretty interesting. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I wouldn't have guessed
Yeah.
that either. Never would have guessed that.
Yeah. So a few more things here. 9 players have actually won both the Jennings and the Vezina Trophy. So a lot of
Okay,
these players are
let's guess them.
more recent. So from the 80s on, from when they had the
Oh, it would have to be
trophy.
80s on because
Yeah.
okay, 9
Yeah.
people. Let me just do a
So
quick guess
9
from the
players.
80s on because my first
Yep.
guess was Ken Dryden, but okay,
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
hold on, 9 of them. So they got to let in not very many goals and win the Vezina for sure. Brodeur,
Yep.
probably Waugh, maybe Hasek. Okay, Belfour, Lundqvist probably.
No.
Okay, Fleury,
Flurry. Yes.
Price,
Price. Yes. So you're at 6.
maybe Holpe, Rask,
Nope.
Thomas,
Who?
Tim Thomas.
Yes.
I figured it had to be a Boston guy. We could do an argument with Swayman. We could put anyone in that. I don't know if I can get all 9,
There
but
still is another
Cujo
Boston
maybe.
guy. There still
What?
is another Boston guy.
Another Boston guy. Oh, Olmark.
We got one more.
Okay, I'm
8 for
proving pretty
9.
good
Here
at
we
you.
go.
Last
This,
one. Man, there's no one in the West except Patty Waugh. What is happening?
this guy's in the West. Kind of a
Is it,
flash in the pan.
oh,
Probably had a
J.S.
few good
Giguere.
years. Uh, it's not him, but I can see where, yeah, you would think him.
A flash in the pan, so it's not Luongo.
No, no. I don't know how long this guy had a career for. His team did really well, went to the finals one year, mid 2000s,
Oh,
and
Salo.
nope. Uh, Played for the Flames.
But it's not going to be Markstrom.
No. Mika
Oh, I
Kiprasov.
know who it is. Kiprasov.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't
Okay.
know what his whole career was, but I mean, he had a few good years where he was
He had a
just
few really good
unbelievable.
years. I used to go to a goalie camp with Ian Clark. If you're not sure who he is, he's the Vancouver Canucks goalie coach. He ran it, and he used to tell a story about Kiprasov. Was like it was like he was a wall in terms of not his ability to stop the puck, but it was like he just had no emotion. And he
Yeah,
would teach us that it's like the key to being a goaltender, which, some people disagree. Look at Patrick Waugh. He's a total lunatic, and he was amazing. But it's like Kiprasov, he said he would make the most amazing save you've ever seen in your whole life. And he was just like, he'd pull up his mask, get his water,
yeah.
and then he'd let in a floater from like the other blue line, and it's nothing. And it was just his ability to bad goal, good save. He could just dial back in. And he always told us the mental warfare was we got to be like Kiprasov.
Mm.
Sorry to be off topic there, but that's
No, that's good.
Ian Clark's been in the news recently because of the Demko thing and how good he is at coaching. And I'm like, I've been to that guy's camp.
Yeah. So 9 players won both. Waugh and Brodeur have both won it 5 times. That's the most by any player.
That's
So,
actually
no,
surprising.
not in the same season.
Yeah, right. Okay.
They've both won. Yeah, so
Fine.
that's the other thing. It was 9 players that have won both, not necessarily both in the same season.
In the same season. Yeah, right. Good call.
But I mean, you
was
were
kind
nailing
of
it.
trying to think, you had a good year and you.
And those are all, I mean, all Hall of Fame, Wall, Brodeur, Belfour, Hasek, Price, Fleury. The ones that I thought Tim Thomas was going to be one that you didn't get. You nailed that. And Allmark and Kiprasov. Yeah, so, I mean, great job on that. Brodeur, his 2003-2004 season, he played 75 games.
Wow.
The Devils only play 82. He played
Right.
75 of them.
75.
38 wins. He had a 2.03 goals against average. 91.917, so essentially a 92 save percentage.
Wow.
11 shutouts. And so in the 75 games that he played, He only allowed 154 goals against.
Wow.
So pretty crazy. That was one of his
That
better
is pretty crazy.
seasons. That you think about a goalie playing 75 games and essentially giving up 2 goals a game. That's it.
Right. And I feel like '04 is their cup year. No, not '04. No, they won in
They won it the year before.
year '03. Yeah, yeah.
03. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So,
that was the window where poor Devils
oh,
fans,
for sure.
they were
Yeah.
so good. They only got one cup,
They
right?
won in 2000, 2000, and 2003.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So
End
they
of
got two.
2000. They got the one in 95, but by 2000 there was kind of a whole new group of guys that were on the team then. So,
Yeah, it was a different era.
yeah.
It just when we were younger and the Red Wings were so dominant, it was kind of always Red Wings or Avalanche, Red Wings or Avalanche. But it was like
Yeah.
I feel like Dallas and New Jersey were the other two.
Yes.
That it was
Yeah.
kind of it was not really a 4-team league, but it was like you cannot
Oh,
beat the Red
essentially,
Wings.
yeah.
So like what? Sorry, like
Yeah.
it's not possible except for Avalanche, Devils, and Dallas. But that is some really interesting history with Nick. I love that.
Yeah, so
I'm
we'll be
glad I got a guess
doing.
on goalies too. Thank you for bringing
Yeah,
that to the table for me. That was fun.
absolutely. I thought you'd like that. So,
I did a lot. We're running pretty well perfect what we were trying to target for, considering it's our first episode and we had at least 10 minutes kind of setting up and talking fantasy a little bit. So I'm feeling pretty good about this episode. Part of the reason we went with studs and scrubs for our name is originally we wanted to do a wrap up where we do like a studs and scrubs hour or a segment where it was like, especially when the season gets going, we'll give fantasy suggestions. And so just playing around, obviously we're the scrubs and the studs are out there on the ice, but of the superstars that are on your fantasy league, sometimes I'll get loyal to like a player I like, or because they play for the Red Wings, I'm gonna keep this guy. He's good. He's good. And you hold him way too long, and it hurts your fantasy. And then there's guys that are just out there, free agents that are maybe underrated, and who's that guy going to be? So we'll call those guys the underrated studs, and the guys that it's time to cut them the scrubs. And so everyone knows that you want McDavid on your fantasy team, but who are the studs and scrubs throughout the season? We'll give our little tidbit that maybe somebody who everyone knows is good, but you forget that they're not in the top number one tier. They're just one step down, or they're even a third step down. And, it's not really a dark horse or a lucky pick, but it's like, whatever. Maybe it's time to cut a pick on PLD. Pierre-Luc Dubois, he gets traded again. He's not producing. Drop him. Okay, before he got traded, the same team, Quentin Byfield, he's the young stud. Get him. And that's the stud. And PLD's the scrub. And so we'll do that all season. Just wanted to preface that quickly. And since we did the Atlantic, I wrote down my top picks that jump out at me that are not really deep picks. They're kind of obvious, but I just think they're going to outperform what they did last year. I was going to drop those. I forgot to send that in the notes or anything if you had some ideas.
no, I like it.
My top, we're probably going to say the same name, so maybe I should just do one.
I don't think so. I don't think we're going to say the same name.
And
I have a few. I have a few wrote down, so I can pick another name.
For Atlantic, you have a few?
Yep.
Or anyone. It doesn't have to be Atlantic, but we're on Atlantic. Okay, I'll just say one.
Let's
go back
with
the
division that we do. We just did Atlantic, so let's do studs and scrubs from there. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to say one name, and then you say a different name. Okay. My pick for this year, I think, is going to be number one. Oh, I don't know about number one, but a really, really good pick who's not the top dog. I think probably the top dog is Kucherov or Matthews. Pick your poison. I don't care. They're the top dogs in the Atlantic for fantasy. I'm going to go the one step down tier. I'm going to go pick up Jake Gensel. I think he's really sick of everyone saying that you're only good because of Crosby. He goes to Carolina for whatever, a cup of coffee. He gets a goal every single game, and then they get rid of Steven Stamkos for him. And everyone's going, well, you better freaking score. Because we just got rid of one of the best goal scorers who ever lived and our captain. And now you're on a line with Point and Kucherov. I mean, I could score 10 goals. So I think he's a no-brainer. He's going to be out for blood. And Point is a goal guy. Kucherov is a passer. Gensel is a tap-in, right? He gets tap-ins from Crosby. But when he's playing with Aho's a passer. So you got Point is a legit stud sniper, and Gensel is going to tap in every single chance from Kucherov. That's the best thing about Gensel. He can hang with the Crosbys because you have to be very, very, very good to keep up with those creative plays, to get those passes, to get a laser beam fake one-timer to the back door and tap it in. Harder than it looks. And I think Gensel's the guy for my first pick, stud.
All right. I like it. I will agree with that. I do have his name down on my stud column. So I'm going to go with a guy who I think is going to have a stud season. I don't know that you could quite label him a stud. I went more stud as in diamond in the rough.
Okay.
Kind of a later round. You're looking for some value. Who's going to be a stud? Where can you find some value off the waiver wire or in the later rounds? And so I'm going to stay with that same team, but I'm going to go Cam Atkinson.
Okay.
When he was in Columbus and Philly, had decent years. Was always probably drafted in our leagues. I remember Jace having him for a little bit. I think I had him, but was one of those guys that was kind of on the fringe. You know, if you had a bad week or something, you could drop him and not worry about anybody picking him up. He's on the second line in Tampa Bay, and he's, to me, a power play specialist. And I think when you're playing on a team, you know, before he was in Columbus and Philly, he's on the top line. He's expected to produce. He's one of the top guys. And so he's going up against the top D pairing on the other team and the top penalty kill and could still produce. So I think he's going to outperform whatever his projection is, just because I think now you're going to be playing, right behind Gunsel, Point, Kucherov, and so the other team's going to have to be worried about that. I think it's going to open up some more opportunities for him. I still think he's on the power play, and so when you got those guys kind of pulling some attention, gives you more space, or maybe they're on the ice with you, and now he's playing. He's never played with the caliber of players that he has around him now in Tampa. So I think he can really surprise some people, and he would be my stud, or just a diamond in the rough that you can find some great value later in the rounds with Cam Atkinson.
That's a great pick. I like the diamond in the rough. I don't have a lot of diamond in the roughs written down, but as far as outperforming what they did last year, I think a good pickup, I am going to butcher pronunciation of his name, unfortunately, is Slavkovsky. I think everyone knows Slavkovsky is going to be a total stud, and he was good last year. I don't think he played all 82 games, but he's that young stud for Montreal. And I'm looking at it, 20 goals and 30 assists last year. Great guy that is in, like you're saying, especially depending on your fantasy. If you got 8 people playing or 10 people playing, you're only
good point.
Whatever. Your forwards are, 6 guys or 10 guys. So you're looking at the top 100 forwards in the whole entire NHL. Okay, well, you're going to have some really good players that get dropped and picked up. And I think that this guy is going to be one you're probably going to want on your team the whole season. I think he's going to outperform. He's a 30-goal scorer, and they're going to be flying. I think Montreal is going to get you tons of fantasy points just because even if they don't finish very high in the standings, in my opinion, there's going to be guys scoring goals. There's going to be points. They're going to be losing games 5-4, I feel like. And, really there's a few people on that team. I shouldn't drop 2 names in my turn, but I don't like, in fantasy, having Patrick Laine because he'll score 5 goals in a game, and then he won't score for 20 games. I think that's over a little bit. I could be too high on him, but I think this season it's going to be consistent. I think he likes where he's at. He's got a new face, a new group, and he's going to be a steady. He's probably going to get 30 to 40 goal. I've got him over 40, I think, in my mind. And I think he's just going to be more steady. None of this, I scored 4 goals in 4 minutes, and then I was out to lunch for 2 months. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think he's going to get you 2 goals a week, and he's just going to get 40. So I cheated and picked 2 because I had Lane written down. So, okay, back over to you.
Okay, so you picked 2 stud. Those are your 2 studs.
Those are my 2 studs, yeah.
Okay.
Because I got
I
my number 1 actually that's out there for us right now, and it's too obvious. I don't want to say that one. It's nobody's. It's not a diamond in the
okay.
rough.
So are we doing 2 studs and then 2 scrubs, or
Yeah, sure. Throw out your pick 2 more studs, and then because
okay?
I feel like we
Well, I got Cam Atkinson. I'm gonna label him a stud
stud.
because I like the diamond in the rough. You can find a stud for what the value for for where you're getting him in the draft. I like his value. I think he can
Yeah,
be a stud in that by that definition. Obviously, your studs are going in your first couple rounds. They're take your pick. You want Matthews or Kucherov, Draisaitl, whoever it is.
right.
These guys are gonna produce. They're studs. They're obviously gonna just put up ridiculous numbers. So I kind of like. It's probably how I'll do it with my studs. Is just a little that next tier, like you were saying, the tier below, but just a stud as far as like getting more bang for your buck.
More bang for your buck. The Nick's diamond in the rough. I like this. This
Diamond in the rough.
section is Nick's
Yeah,
diamonds in the roughs have really gotten like
yeah.
because I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be like, who you guys should get is Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
He's talented, he's
You ever
fast, and
heard of him?
people are
He's
like,
good at
okay,
hockey.
this dude's an idiot. Nick's coming in here with like, dude, Cam Atkinson, you can probably get in like round whatever 8, round
8,
10,
9, 10, somewhere in there.
and
Yeah.
like is gonna get 20 goals.
Yeah.
So I like this.
So
Anyway, so back to
yeah.
you
So
again.
if I had to go with another stud, this guy was talked about the last year or two, maybe, and I don't have any numbers in front of me, but I feel like at first he wasn't producing what people thought he was going to. He wasn't like a huge name, and I do think he kind of took a little step forward. But that's going to be Jake Sanderson for
Okay.
the Senators defenseman, and I think now that they got rid of Chitrin there. I don't know if Chitrin was there all of last season. I know he got traded to like the Coyotes for a minute, and then now he's on the Capitals. But I think he's going to be the guy now quarterbacking that power play in Ottawa. And while I think overall the team's going to struggle and that they're going to miss the playoffs, um, you look at the power play. I mean, Ottawa's got good young talent. Stutzel, Brady Tkachuk, Jake Sanderson's no slouch himself. You got Giroux there. So I think, Batherson, I think their power play is decent. And with, Chitrin out of the way now, I think it's Jake Sanderson's team, defensively speaking. And I think he's going to be the quarterback on the power play. And I think he's going to have a good year. Again, Sanderson's not going to be one of the top 5 defensemen taken. He's not that stud as a Makar or a Fox or, Carlson or, whatever it is. But Roman Yossi, those guys, that's a different tier altogether. But I think if you're looking for value in later rounds, a Jake Sanderson, if he's, and I hate that I'm giving you diamond in the roughs and giving you some of my secrets for fantasy.
Right. This is really just, there's not even a podcast. This is just, I'm cheating at fantasy.
If he can be your, if you get a stud defenseman like that and Jake Sanderson is your 2 or 3 guy, I think you're setting yourself up for a really good year fantasy wise with that. So, not a stud in the sense of, top tier guys, but I think you can find value in Jake Sanderson for sure in later rounds. I do think he's going to get drafted. I don't think he'll go undrafted. Defensemen are just kind of at a premium in the fantasy world. But, I think he's one that if you can get in some later rounds and he's your second or third defenseman, I think you're going to set yourself up really nice.
Yep. That's really good diamonds in the roughs. I like that.
So now I'm probably going to draft them 2 rounds too early because I've given it away.
Worried that I'm going to come in and snipe them. I'm trying to, as you're saying your diamonds in the roughs, I'm trying to glance through because I didn't really come prepared with a scrub since the season hasn't started. Because to me, it's like, it's hard as a couch potato that like when you're talking the top 100 players in the best league in the whole world to be like, that guy sucks, drop him.
Yeah.
But when the season's rolling, it'll be much easier for us to be like, this dude hasn't scored in 6 games. Like, it's time to get rid of him. You lost
Yeah.
last week. So I'll throw out scrub just in terms of not a scrub because I don't want some psycho to listen to us and to come fight me because this player's a really good hockey player. I just think they're going to step back from last year. So I
Okay.
wouldn't draft them myself in round 2, round 3. I think you can find them
Ooh.
later. They're
Okay.
just
Okay.
so scrub that they're going to drop off. I'm going
I
to go
like
with
it.
Vinny Toracek.
Okay.
I think that last year I'm looking at it, he had 25 goals and 50 assists. I'm not saying Torchek's a scrub. I know what he did in the playoffs. I know he's amazing. Okay. What I'm saying is I don't think he's getting 75 points again or 80
Mm,
points. A point
yeah.
per game, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see it. I think that the Rangers are very good, very offensive, very top heavy. And I don't really think Toracek is going to produce that many points again 2 years in a row. I think that he'd be good for your fantasy, but draft him a little later. I think that's a round 5 type guy. I don't remember what he went for us last year.
Yeah.
He's on your son's team to end the season,
Yes.
but he's preseason ranked by Yahoo to be 38. So if you're on a 10-team league, we're on a 12-team league. That's round 3,
Right.
and it's pretty high in round 3. So I don't know. I'm thinking he's more round 4, round 5 for me.
Yeah. I like that. Especially in our league, he's a center only, and so
Center only, right? We didn't talk about that, but
yeah. So he's if you have him on your team and he's your third or fourth center, okay. I don't know that I want to count on him as one of my top 2 centers on my team.
right, exactly. And that was we'll do it in our other one where we talk about our fantasy more. But there's centers, wings, D as positions. Some people can have both. So when
Yeah.
they're a center only, there's only 2 spots. So if you're lucky and you got Matthews, and then you have whoever is your second D, is Toracek good enough to be your number 2 center? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't think anyone expected Reinhardt to get 60 freaking goals or whatever he did last year. So you're a little lucky maybe if you've got Reinhardt and you've got
Yeah.
Stamkos or something. But
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going into the draft saying that's my strategy. I got to figure out how to get Toracek. I'm thinking I'll get lucky if I'm in round 4, round 5, and he's there. I'll snag him. But
Nice. I like it. I'm kind of the same lines as you with my scrubs. This guy is not a scrub uh, per se. I just see him taking a step back, and I see this guy probably getting drafted round 1, round 2 because of how he did last year. You already mentioned him, and that's going to be Sam Reinhart. Um, I don't know what his stats are as far as how long he's been in the league and what he normally does, but I think he was over 50 goals last year.
and who was it? I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. Who was it?
Oh, sorry, Sam Reinhart.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did he have 50 goals last year?
I
Pushing
feel like
60?
he had 57. I don't know why I have that number in my head. He did. He
Okay.
had 57 goals and 37 assists. So not very many assists, but I mean,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I mean, he had 37, but
And
57 goals.
and I don't know how old he is or how long he's been in the league, but I feel like he's going to be the same kind. This is the same player as Chris Kreider a couple years ago, where he scored 52 goals or something, and then the next year in fantasy he was a first round draft pick, and it was like
Right,
I'm not doing that.
right.
I want someone to prove it to me. I'm going to take the proven player in round 1, in round 2, the guys that are the consistent 100-point players. I want my first and second round picks. I want the floor for them to be high. That
Yep.
that if they have a bad year, they're still going to be a point per game. If McDavid doesn't score uh, if he scores 40 points less this year than he did last year, he's still over 100 points, which is just ridiculous.
Right. Yep.
But that's what I want. I want a high floor. I'm not trying to take risks. I'm not trying to gamble in the first and second round for a guy that might score that again. I think Sam Reinhart's been in the league for a few years now. I think this year was the anomaly. This was the exception, not the rule. I'm going to let someone else take the chance. Maybe I pass on him. Maybe he scores 60 goals this year. Okay, great. But I'm going to let someone else eat that risk
Yep.
rather than me. So I don't know what he's going to be, what his projected rank is in Yahoo, but I would not be shocked if he's taken in the first or second round in our fantasy draft this year. And I'm
Yep.
staying away from him. I'm not taking him. Not that he's a scrub, but I just think he's going to take a step back this year from what he did last year.
I agree with you on that one. I think that in our fantasy league and probably other people's, he gets a little bit of a boost in my book because he's a center and a winger. So there's a little boost there for fantasy. But
Yeah,
to your point, you want the floor to be so high. Last year it
that you
happened to
can't
me.
miss. Yeah,
I picked number 2 overall in our league last year, and I took Leon Draisaitl. And um, I thought that you could debate in fantasy he might be the best player in the whole NHL because he's so many points and is a center winger. So he's so versatile in your fantasy lineup and then gets so
yeah,
many points. Well, like you said, he had a off year where he didn't do quite as well as I was thinking. Guy had 100 points.
yeah,
So when I say off year, maybe it was the slow start when Edmonton wasn't doing well at the beginning of the year. But you're looking at it like, oh my god, my number 2 pick didn't get points. Okay, well he still had 100 points. Where if you go out and your number 1 pick is Sam Reinhart, he might get 50 goals again. I don't see it either. I think he's going to be really good, and I think he's going to get 70 to 80 points. I don't think he's going to get 90.
yeah.
I don't think he's going to get 100. And of course, goals way more in fantasy usually. They do in our league too. 57 goals. I don't. That's not going to happen again. I don't
Yeah.
think.
No, he could still get 35 and have
Yep.
a great year.
And have a great year. He might even get more assists. He might have the same amount of points. I don't think he's
Yeah.
getting 57 goals again.
I just think, like you said earlier about the step back, that's what he's going to do. And that's kind of how I used my scrub definition was who do I think is
Yep.
kind of overrated, if you will.
Right. And you know what? I've got a good comparable to that same thing that is in a different division, so I won't talk too much about it. But he's a keeper in our league this year, so it doesn't matter. I think Philip Forsberg will be similar. He'll have a great year. He's a total stud. Nashville's awesome. But I'm looking at he had 48 goals and 46 assists. I don't see 50 goals again.
Yeah, I see
48,
60.
that's a lot of goals. I don't think he's gonna get 48 again.
Well, I will tell you that the person that kept him also thought about keeping a defenseman, but the person that's keeping him does not have a first round draft pick this year. And so I
Yeah.
need someone,
I wonder who it
or
is.
that person, whoever it is in the league, probably needs someone that's going to score more points than even a top tier defenseman. Now,
Right.
if that person had a first round draft pick, full
Maybe
disclosure, it's
it
me.
could
I'm
be.
picking
It could
Forsberg.
be. We trade draft picks if you haven't picked up on that, and it's
Yeah,
Nickstrum if you haven't picked up on that.
yeah. I've been a
But we'll talk more
big
about that when we do
proponent.
the Central.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of keeping the quarterback defenseman, the top tier defenseman. If you have a Roman Yossi, a Cale Makar, an Adam Fox, John
Yep.
Carlson a few years ago, Eric Carlson, Chris Letang, even on that kind of
Yep.
bubble,
Quinn Hughes. Yep.
Quinn Hughes, Burns there for a minute. If you had one of those guys and you could keep them, and they were just gold. I mean, and you could go find some forwards that are going to get you some points. But if you had one of those defensemen, because at the time, there was no, I don't think we were doing points for block shots or anything like that. So you needed an offensive defenseman. But even having an offensive defenseman like an Adam Fox isn't going to put up as many points as a forward is going to.
Yep.
So,
You need
and
them.
without a first round pick, I just felt like I would be just kind of Man, just kind of keeping myself back a little bit more if I didn't take a forward that I knew was going
Yeah.
to produce some points. And you're right, Forsberg, if you look at him, he had a great year last year. Um, and I want to say I drafted him in the ninth or 10th round last year.
It was lower. I remember seeing that. It was a very
So
good deep pick.
he doesn't, uh, how consistent is he going to be with those 90-point seasons? Was
Well,
last year a fluke? I don't know. I like
right.
that he's got Stamkos on his line
Exactly. I
now.
was just going to
So,
say, I mean, you're looking at it and you're going, okay, maybe Fluke's a little strong. He's going to be a total stud, but a step back. You're looking at it on paper. The power plays was Marcia So with Stamkos and Forsberg and Yossi. I mean, they're going to get lots of points. He's going to get
yeah.
points. We'll talk about it more with the Central because
Yeah,
somebody
well,
else in
I'm
our league
getting
kept
kind of ahead of
Bernard,
that, but yeah, for sure.
Bedard, and we'll talk about that too. That it's a little surprising for me to have him as a keeper, but I do think he's a special player. He's a little bit of an outlier. I'm a big believer in the sophomore slump that people go down, but I don't, not Bernard. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to get tons of goals. We'll talk about that in the Central.
Yeah,
Surprised as a keeper or a number one, pick, but solid. That guy's team too. I looked at his ending roster wasn't that great. He's got
he
three
doesn't have many
picks in the
options.
first round, so he'll be fine.
Yeah,
Um,
so
Anyway, so we went a little bit long, but I still think that we stayed on track pretty well. It's our first
yeah,
podcast. We had
I
to
think so.
explain some of our fantasy league junk so people know what we're talking about when they, add us, like, subscribe, download, give
All
us a
the things.
chance.
Yep,
And we will be back later this week to do the Metro next, yes?
yep, sounds good.
All right. Anything else you want to wrap up with, or news, or anything that you could think of before we go?
No, I don't think so. I had a little blurb on Crosby that I wanted to do, just because he's getting ready to make some crazy history.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to save that for the Metro when we talk about the teams there,
Oh
and
yeah, might
kind
as
of
well
touch
do
on
Metro.
him.
Yeah, we'll wrap up and we'll
So,
do Jack Eye with Wi-Fi. That was my one I forgot to. So that was one of my rough picks. He doesn't get very many
okay,
points. He's not that good in fantasy, but depending on how your league does points, I think Jack
yeah,
Eye's he signed his ticket. His team's young and fast, and he's the tough guy in town. But you got to play to keep up with those guys. You got to get into play. You're going to get some assists. You're going to get some plus minus. I
yeah,
think he'd be a good deep pick. That's around 10, around 12 type guy.
okay.
Okay, so that's all I've got for that. Everyone, thank you for giving us a chance and listen. We are the Studs and Scrubs Hockey Podcast. Join us, and we will soon get everything available for Spotify, for YouTube, and try to get this thing rolling. So
Yep.
thanks for joining us. Keep your stick on the ice.